The original sutra was written in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit is an ancient Indian language spoken at the time of the Buddha. At the time of the Buddha in India, there are many dialects being spoken, but the most common two languages spoken in India at the time of the Buddha, which is about 2,600 years ago, were basically two very popular languages. One is Pali, the other is Sanskrit. And in India, a lot of other languages were developed from Sanskrit and Pali. The language of Pali was spoken most of all by the vast majority of the people. The royal family and the upper class spoke the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language is still continuously being learned by many, many scholars. Even in UBC, in many universities, they teach Sanskrit. And we have a Sanskrit expert in Canada and teaching at UBC for many, many years. He already retired. His name is Akruchika. It's my teacher. And he's been teaching in UBC for many, many years. He retired already. Apart from that, this is just to tell you, the original Heart Sutra was written in Sanskrit, and it's being translated about 1,200 years ago in China into Chinese, and about 200 years ago, translated into English. We already have covered many, many weeks. We cover about up to this part. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Now, what is form? We call it also material. Material is emptiness, and emptiness is material. And we already have explained what is emptiness. Emptiness is the common English language for the Sanskrit, sunyata. Sunyata is the Sanskrit language. And directly translated into common English is emptiness. But really, emptiness, the translation cannot convey its true, real meaning. We'll get into that as we move on. It's very important that when you study the Buddhist teaching, you really have to know some basics in order to move on. For beginners, you just bear with us because you haven't been here, and there are a lot that you really have to grasp the meaning. You can get into Google or whatever information that you can get. Now, material is emptiness, and emptiness is material. Maybe we get a little bit into that so that we make people understand what it's all about. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. To summarize it, we're using an example. We said gold and ornaments. Ornaments like earrings, finger rings, bracelets, charms, and necklaces arise from the conditional causation of gold. What is conditional causation? Many, many causes put together in order to realize these ornaments. Ornaments are contained in gold, and gold is contained in ornaments, because all phenomena arises from conditional causation of emptiness, so form is emptiness. So in other words, all phenomena, what we see, what we feel, what we hear, what we touch, what we listen to, all these are phenomena. But they arise because of certain thing. They arise, they're empty. Why they're empty? Because each one of this, nothing, every item, everything is emptiness. That means it does not have its intrinsic self nature. It does not have its intrinsic own being, its intrinsic of own becoming. And in the Sanskrit language, we call it svabhava. Svabhava has its own intrinsic nature. Svabhava means its own being, own becoming. When you add an A to svabhava, it becomes asvabhava. Asvabhava means no real nature. We have an existence. This is my body. But this body is only fictitious. They exist. Its existence is only conditional causation. It does not, my body, I, me, does not have a real existence. It exists out of emptiness. It exists out of conditional causation. It does not have my body, my whole self, my ego does not have a real intrinsic own being and own becoming. Anything that has its own becoming and own being, what is it? If it has its own being, that means it does not rely on any causes. It does not rely on any conditions for it to come up. It can come up originally without relying on anything. It has its own becoming. And it exists and continue to exist without relying on other factor of existence. It can exist and exist and exist forever. Now that means it has its nature, its intrinsic own being and own becoming. When we say nothing is like that, we say asvabhava. Nothing has its own becoming, nothing has its own existence, nothing has its own being. For that reason, nothing is permanent. I cannot find anything in this world that is permanent. My body is not permanent. This building is not permanent. Everything is changing. Nothing is not changing. That is emptiness. For that reason, we say it does not have its own intrinsic entity. It does not have a self. It does not have an intrinsic ego. But we, as individuals, we always think that we have an ego. We have a self. This is I. This is me. This is you. You always discriminate between you and me. We always have a defined self-interest in us. We want to protect our self-interest. We want to protect our own ego. And our ego, as a matter of fact, is being nurtured and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. And this bigness of ego gets us into trouble. This bigness of ego gives us a lot of suffering that we may not realize. And this bigness of ego gives us a lot of mental afflictions that we don't even realize it. We thought it was like that. We are habitually greedy. We're habitually jealous. We're habitually worrying. We habitually have all kinds of mental afflictions. Hatred, anger, animosity, injuries, attachment to sensual pleasures, voluptuous desires in eating, in listening, in seeing, in touching, because we want to satisfy our sensuous desires. We thought that is happiness. And we want to pursue things like that, even at the expense of ruining other people, even at the expense of injuries to other beings, because of we think that we exist. We think that we need to protect our own existence. If you want to realize the radiance and the beauty of gold, you cannot do so apart from its various forms. Earring is gold, but then gold is earring, because how can you realize the radiance of gold, the beauty of gold, the existence of gold, through no form, through no material? We don't want to deny material. I cannot say I don't have an existence, so I deny it. I downgrade it. I negate it. I despised it. I don't want it. I want to kill myself because I don't have a good existence. You don't want to do that, because you can only realize emptiness by not attaching to emptiness. You realize your existence, your fictitious existence, by knowing the existence. It's just a phenomena that gives rise to the nomina to lift you up to a higher understanding. You don't negate, you don't despise, you don't downgrade, you don't discriminate. You see the difference? Just to summarize, material is sunyata, and sunyata is material. And then we go back to the very basics of, then what is my existence? Who am I? Who are you? Who am I? Where do I come from? Why do I exist for 100 years and then I die? Where would I go afterwards? Why do I eat my breakfast every day and do my work, earn my living, take my lunch, do my living again, eat my dinner, go to sleep, and I habitually repeat the same thing every day, and in the process of doing it, I'm looking for fame, reputation, money, and wealth, and protection of myself and all that, and protect my families, my family members, and everybody want to be happy and all. Is that all about life? Life is just all about upkeeping this body or upkeeping the body of your family members? Is that all about it? Then you question, if that is life, what's the meaning of life? Should we be in search of a higher meaning of life? And that higher meaning, some people call it the spirituality of life. You lift yourself above material. You don't just habitually in search of material. You lift yourself up and say, what is my existence all about? Why do I have to go through all this pain? Why am I so tired in these ups and downs of life? Why do I have to go through all these mental afflictions? Why I have to go through this sadness? And sometimes I feel pleasurable. I wouldn't say happy. There's a difference between true happiness and pleasures that we should differentiate. When we consider who am I consider who as I, then I must have the he and the she and the they that I interact to. Because I cannot have just my own existence, right? There's existence of others. How do I interact to environments? And in this process of interaction, how do I understand myself? I say, I have senses. I react, I have senses. And I have a reaction. I react to objects, to environments. I react to everybody. And in the process of these reactions and existence and becoming, my existence comes through. But then what actually is existence? Don't we have to analyze about this existence? Then we say we have eyes, we have ears. I've already gone through this, but just for the purpose of reviewing it back again, we have nose, we have tongue, and then eyes, ears, no tongue are just the front-end salesman of your body. Because if you don't have this front-end salesman, you don't interact. If you don't have eyes, you don't have ears, you don't have nose, you don't have tongue, you're a lump of flesh. We identify this front-end salesman because these front-end salesmen are responsible for reaction. And they receive information. They give out information. In the process of receiving information, giving out information, we call it reaction. Lots of things happen in your existence. But other than this front-end salesmen of senses, sensory organs, we also have the kidneys, the heart, the skin, the skeleton, the liver, and all this. We conglomerate it as an aggregate, we call it the body. We also have the whole body. Because how can you explain yourself just with senses? In addition to senses, your sensory organs, you have the skin, you have the fluid inside of you, you have the movement of the breath, you have water, you have blood, saliva, skeletons, internal organs. But material cannot explain everything. That's just my body in material, in molecules. We're nothing but body cells. These are the body cells. Is that all about our body existence? We say no. We have a mind. It's body and mind. So we have a mind. And with all the body and the mind, that makes the whole reaction complete. But then we say, yeah, we have the body and the mind. What happens when I'm dead, when I die? Am I just like a candle? When I die, then the wind blow me out. This candle, the light no more exists. I don't have an I and you don't have a you. So are we talking about just the nihilism of just one life? Think about it. Do you just have one life? You only have this life and no more? When you have this life and no more, we know that there's a natural law of conditional causation. That means no effect without causes. So when you have cultivate some causes, then there's got to be some effects come up. So if we have only this one life, that means whatever causes that we have cultivated in this life, there will be no effects because I have just this one life. That means there's no conditional causation. That means contradiction to the natural law. Naturally, there's a cause and an effect, right? Whatever effects I have cultivated, I have done all these bad causes, for example. And I have to have done this, fine, I'm dead. Then there will be no effects anymore. So I can do what I want. I can kill, I can rape, I can do whatever I want as long as my sensory organs are happy. And that is it. If you have that kind of attitude, that's like a criminal's attitude. I can do whatever I want. I don't care about the law. I don't care about the legality of the law of the society. I don't care about the natural law of the universe. Nothing like that. I don't believe in that. But it does not matter whether you believe in it or not. There is a natural law. Of the society, there's the legal law. Of the nature, there is a cosmo law. You can't get away with it. If you believe that you only have this life, you're contradicting logic. You're contradicting the natural law. So then after we die, what happened to us? Well, our senses are all gone. No more ears, no more nose, no more tongue, no more body, no more nothing. So where does everything that we have done, or the karma, we call it, karma, where does it go? We say that store in the consciousness, that stores in the alaya consciousness. Everything, all the karma that you have done, gets stored into something, I don't know how we call it, because it's something that you cannot see. Sometimes we call it the energy. We call it the alaya consciousness. Alaya means the storage. Everything you've done, you just store in a kind of place. It's not a place, because when you talk about a place, it's material. For the sake of calling it, we call it alaya consciousness. It gets stored and shrink into the alaya consciousness, which you cannot see, you cannot touch, you cannot hear. It's not perceptible. Sometimes people call it the energy, but even energy is not the right word for it. It gets stored in there and roll into the next life in another body. In the Heart Sutra, it summarizes all this into 5 skandhas. It summarizes everything about you, about me, into 5 skandhas. Material, there's material, right? Material are the body cells, which is the eye, ears, nose, tongue, body. Perception, conceptualization, volition, and consciousness belongs to the mind. Material is easy to understand because we just said material is form. In the sutra, we call it material is emptiness and emptiness is material. Material is not other than emptiness and emptiness is not other than material. Then how about perception? Perception is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than perception. Perception is emptiness, and emptiness is perception. Then how about conception? Conceptualization. Conceptualization is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than conceptualization. Conceptualization is emptiness, and emptiness is conceptualization. The same is true with volition and consciousness. That means perception is when your sensory organs contact environments, you have a perception. Conceptualization is when your mind thinks about it, trace back to the past, dig out your archive files and analyze it. Whatever all your senses do is not just the senses. You automatically go back to the past. It's just like if I compare it to what we do in the daytime, usually, we got the front end and then our consciousness would react through our doors and get into our mind digs back the old files and analyze it and see, okay, this is Mr. Cheng and this Mr. Cheng has a history with us and this is, everything about the past. You dig out the past files. And then you also worry about the future. In the future, what we're going to do. So all these conceptualization and perception analyze in your mind. And then after you do that, you carry out into action. And what kind of actions? Many, many actions. You carry out into speech. You carry out into action. We call it volitional speech, action, and thought. So every thought, every speech, every action is a volitional. Is volition. So you is like that. I am like that. And even this perception, conception, volition is conditional causation. Everything you see that you feel pleasurable is not just that. It comes out because of conditional causation. Every volitional action. Take for instance your volitional action of sitting in here today, listening to a lecture, sitting in here today meditation. That volitional action does not come by without reason. There are conditional causations that cause you to come here. There are causes to bring you here. There are one or two persons who couldn't start the car in the morning. I'm going to the temple and start the car. Oh, I couldn't start my car, so I'm not going. I got to stay at home. So conditional causation does not come true for him to come to the temple. And even in the middle of the road, say, maybe I should change my mind. Why don't I go to McDonald's to get a hamburger? Why don't I go to a white spot to get a coffee? I don't want to go to this meditation class. So there are many conditions that prevent an individual from coming in here. There are many conditions that make it happen to people. Nothing comes without a reason. Every thought, every action, every speech, it arises without its own being, without its own becoming. It arises because of conditions put together. Then we say, how does it help me? You're a psychologist, you're a philosopher, so what? Yes, conditions. We know conditions, so how does it help me? We're always considering me. How do you benefit me? You always want to benefit, right? Well, I come here, what do I learn? I want to learn something that make me better. What do you learn from conditional causation? You got to build conditions for yourself. You want to build conditions for this spiritual odyssey, that you become enlightened. You want to build conditions for you to be successful in life. You want to build conditions for you to stop the worrying. You want to build conditions for improving your self-confidence. You want conditions for you to be happier, right? So you are a positive, confidence, condition builder. Up to you. You have that ability. You couldn't change the past. It does not matter how bad the past is, how abusive has been your childhood, how happy. You cannot change the past. You can change the present. You can make way for the future. Why don't you do something about it? You can be a Buddha. You can be like Sakyamuni Buddha 2,600 years ago. But you don't want to be. It's a pity. The Buddha said, you can be me. You can be away from life and death. You can be away from all this suffering. You can be away from jealousy, hatred, disappointment, fear, worry. You can eradicate all those. Building up conditions to eradicate all those. Don't you want to be? It's up to you, not up to the Buddha, not up to God. Don't attach, because everything is conditional causation. When you transcend life and death, you're the Buddha. When you find the meaning, the highest meaning in life, you are the Buddha. You are the God. You are God. You don't have to look for God. You don't have to look for God. It's right here. You just have to explore it, discover it, unravel it, review it, show it, train it. That's why you come for meditation. And the Buddha told us more than that. The Buddha's teaching can make your life happier. Because you are a conditions builder, a meritorious conditions builder. You can build up conditions for yourself, mind you, not bad conditions. Conditions that benefit people, benefit yourself, benefit the society, benefit all sentient beings. Conditions that make you abstain from killing, conditions that make you abstain from lying, abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from intoxication, abstain from being egoistic, abstain from being anger, hatred, jealousy, disappointment, feared, inferiority complex. You think the Buddhist teaching is negative? It is the most positive. It tells you all the negative things and say, stay away from those negative things. Stay away from things that make you feel sad, that brings you all the suffering. Walk away from there. Go to Prashta Paramita. How to do it? This is just your first day. This is just your first sitting. You got to walk your path, not just talking about it. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many videos you see on YouTube. Some people are constant learner. They want to read, they want to listen, but they've never practiced it. All the books on the shelf, you accumulated. How many of them have you covered from page 1 to page 100? You've been reading, you've been listening, you've been doing all these things, but there's empty talk, empty reading. Walk the catwalk. Don't put your fashion clothes on a hanger. Put it on and walk it out. Practice, practice, practice. The Buddha said there's 3 ways to be a condition builder, to unravel that God in you. 3 ways. Do you want to follow these 3 ways? The first way is morality, precept abiding. Second, samadhi. Third, wisdom. There's 3 ways. Morality is to improve on your conduct so that you won't be carried away by bad karma. All this bad karma that you created, they would cover your real self. They would bring you a lot of suffering. When you are suffering all the time, how can you practice? When you are poor, when you're unhealthy, when you're on the verge of death, when you're always involved in sensual pleasures, how can you even meditate? How can you do the practice? So you really have to stop doing bad karma. Abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, intoxication. Abstain from bad conduct, then that means you will live happier because you won't encounter bad effects. You can't get away with bad effects. That's the first step. The second step is concentration. And then you concentrate into changing your mind. That's samadhi, concentration. That's why we come for meditation. And then you go a higher level on wisdom in search of the higher meaning of life. Until you reach that meaning, anuttara asamya sambuddhi, that is the Buddha's meaning of life that has been well achieved. Just to generalize. The Buddha talked about millions of volumes of teaching method which tune to every habitual sentient being, because everybody is different. Your education, your conduct, family background, everything is different. And the Buddha, that's why, introduced many, many methods in giving it to you. But the general concept is the same.